All right, here we go. Should be Phil right here. Um, should be Phil Hendrie, world famous.
Hello.
Phil Hendrie.
Hey.
It's Bubba.
Hey, brother. How you doing?
Good. How are you, my friend?
Good. Just woke up, to be perfectly honest with you. 'Cause it's early, dude. It's 8:45, or whatever it is.
And I know we had a little bit of a miscommunication with regards to, is it 9 your time? I mean, noon my time or noon your time? I don't know if you would have agreed to it if you would have known it was noon my time.
Oh no, that's cool. I would have had more of a heads up, but that's all right.
I kind of want cobweb Phil Hendrie, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you got him.
I
There
want the lack of prepared, freshly from a bender. Phil fucking Hendrie is what I want.
Bender is right. It wasn't a bender though. It was about two Mexican mules last night.
Yeah, it's with a sidebar a donkey bar deal. Hey, Phil, you live in L.A. Is there really such? And I'm sure you've been down to some of the bowels of Mexico. Is there really donkey bars?
You have to ask my older brother, who's no longer with us, but he was a shore patrolman in the Navy, and he apparently pulled a lot of guys out of those bars. I don't know whether or not all of them were donkey bars, but nowadays, no. Back in the day,
yeah. I wouldn't say. I would even think that the donkeys might have a Me Too movement. Nowadays.
Me Too. Freaking donkey. Who knows? So many degenerate Americans with so much money to spend back in the day. I'm sure that there was plenty of entertainment.
Phil, are you the number one guy, like with regards to radio guys, that like the one guy, like even Howard Stern and I, when we were having a conversation in '05 about putting this new channel together, he's like, Phil Hendrie. I mean, like you have to be like the radio guy's guy.
Oh, maybe the radio guy's guy, but I mean, I haven't been on the radio in so long. I don't even think anybody freaking knows who I am, to be honest with you, in terms of listeners. But radio people, maybe. I mean, the business is so different now. It's all political talk, man. There's no entertainment. Like you're on the radio. But you do a morning show, don't you? Or what
we do. We do a morning show, and and we're repurposing it like all this stuff. You got all the nonsense that you got to do, but there is no more. There isn't any of this non-sports, non-political, fun, smart ass guy talk that you certainly were way before me. But it seems like that's it's pretty much gone.
Yeah, and I was told. I had a conversation with some guys in the digital world saying, well, it's going away because the advertisers or the radio management didn't want to hear any more heat from advertisers, or the advertisers didn't want to get more heat for whatever it was they were getting heat for. I don't know what. Too much. I don't know what it was, man, but they decided they would go with sports because that was controversy without – sports is controversial but doesn't mean anything. So you can get pissed off about – who a quarterback is.
And the problems that we have is you don't have the Randy Michaels, and you don't have the Kevin Weatherlys, and you don't have the Mark Chases. You don't have these guys around that said, man, you know what? I like controversy. I can sell controversy. Controversy moves the needle. I mean, like the thing, the premise that IOD and KFI were built on. You don't have those. You don't have those slinging dicks anymore that will stand behind talent.
No, because they're not radio people anymore, man. I don't know who these guys are that are running radio stations. A lot of them came from whoever these companies were that bought the stations, and these companies were hedge funds and shit like that, or pharmaceutical companies. That makes sense. But, they're not really radio guys, so it's okay. I don't like to sit around and talk about the old days of radio. It took me as far as it could. I guess I went as far as I could in radio.
Well, hold on, Phil. I hate to interrupt, but you went pretty damn fucking far, buddy. I mean, you went pretty. I mean, come on, buddy. Let's not underscore.
I went way out there and then right off the edge.
I mean, from BJ 105 in Orlando to the bowels of New Orleans to spinning records in Miami to then your biggest gig. I think you went from Miami out to KFI for the weekends, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I went from Miami when I was at WSH. I had two things in my. I went to WIOD in Miami and WSCG. So I had two lives in Miami. One as a disc jockey, one as a talk show host, and they were separated by about 14 or 15 years. And then from Miami went to LA to KFI.
Where did you get the most ass in Miami? Did you get the most ass as spinning records or the most ass talking?
Oh, talking, because I was a star when I was doing a talk show. When I was a disc jockey, I was just another guy mumbling through a humble pie, set.
Another Dick Biondi. So, Dick Biondi.
Yeah, well, Dick Biondi was actually a pretty fucking amazing disc jockey.
No, he was. He Dick Biondi and God, those guys. Who else? Big Ron O'Brien.
Real Don Steele.
Yeah, Rhino. Was it Big Ron O'Brien out of L.A.?
Yeah. I don't know about Ron. I think Big Ron O'Brien was New York.
Was he New York?
Yeah.
Charlie Tuna. Charlie Tuna,
all those dudes. Yeah, that's what I grew up with, and but I realized I was never really meant to be a DJ because you couldn't. I thought you could play your own music, and by the time I got into it, you were handed a playlist. You're told, here's what you're going to play.
Well, you rolled in like early '70s where everybody was really, their asses were still hurting from the payola, Alan Freed shit.
I think so. Yeah.
Now, what was the craziest shit? Now, I came in '86, about 15 years after you, and there was still some crazy, underhanded, hey, play this record kind of shit. In back then, I mean, I'm sure you saw it in Miami.
When I was on as music director in Miami, I had guys, and I won't say the record companies, but cats would come in and bust out, some coke or whatever, so I would listen to some piece of shit that they wanted me to put on the air. And or I was told that I had to go out and party with these guys. It's really funny because when I was in Miami, Bubba, I did not smoke or drink or use any drugs or anything at the time. I was like, I put down all that. I'm trying to remember why.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Damn, I thought you were cooler than that, Phil.
But don't worry. I got back to L.A. and it started all over again. But and so I was told I had to go out and party with these guys. And it was pretty silly because a lot of the music was really terrible. A lot of it was fantastic. Like, for instance, I'll give you an example. The guy comes in one day with the Warner Brothers Rod Stewart Do You Think I'm Sexy album. And he said, you might like this one. And it was Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing. He said, this thing is far better than that piece of shit that you just put on from Rod Stewart. It's a fantastic record, And he goes, really? Yeah. I said, hell yeah.
But Rod Stewart had some kind of promotion behind it where if you added it, you got to send 3 listeners to the Daytona 500 or some bullshit.
Yeah. They always had that kind of a thing. And then Dire Straits was just absolutely unknown. But they had a really great record, and the thing just jumped out of the box in the United States. And pretty much, Dire Straits is one of the first, the proto-new wave of music that put Rod Stewart and those guys away for a while. Anyway.
And I think that Phil Hendrie on the phone, one of my guys when it comes to influence and comes to just I don't know, just the royalty of radio, whether that means shit or anything nowadays, I don't know. But you've carved out a pretty good niche, Phil. You were first in like in 04, 05, I think, first in on kind of the digital deal, and I don't know if you get credit for that or not.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of guys. You mean from the radio world? Maybe, but I know guys like Jimmy Pardo, who's a comedian out here that I know. Jimmy was all over it pretty early in 2006, 2005. In terms of radio guys, I don't really know. I just, you know what, Bubba, what I did and what I do or whatever it was is so fucking weird that I knew it wasn't going to be, long on radio. They were having a hard time selling it. They were having a hard time affiliating it. But I knew I had a real good core of listeners, and I went directly to them, and that's really what it is. It's just a relationship you build directly with your listeners, and that's what we've been doing ever since. And
you don't need a lot of P1s to make a difference. It's kind of like HBO versus Fox. Fox needs like 15, 20 million people to watch but HBO and Netflix needs about 1 million to pay for it, and that's it.
That's it, man. And streaming subscription services are where it's at in television, and we've made a living doing it. I don't know. And I know you have a subscription model as well as like guys like Steve Dahl has been doing it for a long time.
How's Steve doing? Are you close with Steve?
I'm not. I've only spoken to him once. Now he's a guy that I consider to be royalty for sure.
Oh,
And,
fuck yeah, him
yeah.
and Kevin, Kevin Matthews
Oh
and
yeah, those guys are. I mean,
oh,
that was hyper WIOD. Those guys. And,
Neil Rogers.
oh, I got to work with Neil.
I know you did. In fact, Neil you got close, didn't you?
Well, now, but what do you mean by that?
No, I don't mean.
No,
I don't mean the way
I know.
Neil gets close.
No, I really respected him. Went to a hockey game with him. Neil didn't get close with anybody, man. He was constantly. He was just like your angry uncle, you know. I suppose there were some people who were really tight with Neil, Fat Rich, guys like this, but I did fortunately have his respect, and he had mine, and that's worth it because he'll rip your ass.
Didn't he used to hate Larry King? Didn't he used to just? And didn't you call it? I don't know if I remember this right as my radio historian, but let me see if I get it right, and then you correct me. Larry King got in trouble, and he was this known alcoholic and kind of a bad guy in Miami, and you called him up acting like Bob Green, I think the GM, and told him that he needed to call in on your show. I think something like that.
Well, what happened was actually that stuff that was going on with Larry King. Larry, we had a mugshot of Larry King on the wall at WID from way back in the day when he kited a check or something. But by this point, Larry was very respected, had his show, and he had on Don Shula. And Don Shula and he were talking, and Larry says, "You get a hard time from your station in Miami, don't you?" And because, we had the freedom to rip the Dolphins, even though we were their flagship, which, was probably would never happen anywhere else. So I somehow got a hold of his home number, I think maybe from Cheryl or somebody, and called him up as Bob Green. And, our general manager, Bob Green, had a very distinct, high-pitched voice. I got to tell you something. You're really, boy, that hurt, what you said. And I'd like you to come on the Phil Hendrie show, and talk about it. So we did, and we put it out on our CD. And it's on a 95 CD. I think it's, I've got it, I know, on our website. Yeah, it's basically he's saying, but the worst talk radio I ever heard in my life is that WIOD and stuff like that. So Neil picked that up and ran with it. I think he had Larry on a few years later and kept hitting that drop. Worst talk radio I ever heard in my life.
The legendary Phil Hendrie on the show. Is it Phil Hendrie? I think it's PhilHendrieShow.com, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, PhilHendrieShow.com, and that's our web home.
But I know you're on Podcast One, and I mean you're everywhere. I mean, really pretty well distributed.
Yeah, we get some really decent downloads, and grateful for that. But I think we're primarily Podcast One and SoundCloud, and then our own website. We have the home player. We have the player right on our homepage, and
now, Phil, you can shoot me straight. Like, I'm just starting to scratch this podcast and stuff, but you can shoot me straight because you always do. Is there any real bread in podcasting? Because I know that we talked, we talked early on the internet stuff, and I mean, is there decent bread in that?
Well, for me, I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't know what you think is decent bread, but I keep my operation kind of lean. Now, when you and I were together in Chicago at the NAB, didn't you have you had a massive amount of subscribers, man?
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Pretty good. I mean, probably not, collectively over all of them, but this you hear I feel like podcasting to radio guys like me, although you've scratched it, is kind of the Wild West that we don't really know about a lot. And you hear numbers like, Joe Rogan makes like, 75,000 a podcast, which is probably true, but
$75,000 a podcast?
Yes.
Oh, how often does he do a podcast?
Every day. I mean, 5 days a week.
That would pretty much make him what?
Like 18, 19 million?
Yeah, he'd be like the fucking Warren Buffett.
The Warren Buffett of fucking podcasting. Hey, you know what though? I like Joe. Do you listen to Joe much?
No, I haven't really, to be honest with you. I don't listen to anything. I don't, except for music, and I don't do that because I hate it. I do it because I don't want my point of view polluted. It's a weird thing about me. I don't listen to much,
yeah. Phil. I really don't, because I think everybody's. Yeah. I sit there and analyze and be like, that guy sucks, and he's got how many markets?
Yeah. But also, I don't want a lot of what they're saying to filter into what I say, and suddenly I'm quoting some other guy's stuff. So. I don't listen to him, but I do listen to music. I listen to a little bit of sports during the, football season, which I'm really not even getting into anymore. I'm weird, man. I watch English soccer now. That's where I've gone.
What's the average Phil Hendrie's, like, what's your average day, Phil? What time do you get up? What time do you do the show?
Oh, I get out of bed at about noon, maybe 11. And, I get probably about 10 or 11 in the morning.
God, I have to fucking get up at 3:30. God.
God, you know what, man? My hat's off to all you guys that do morning drive, and you've been doing it for years.
Oh.
And it's just like,
it's the worst, Phil. You never get used to it. You don't,
Yeah. Well, I didn't. I did like 2 gigs and I couldn't take it, man. But
Did you ever meet Casey Kasem, Phil?
Yeah, met him over at Westwood One, and then I met him again at Premiere. And I met his daughter. Forget. She's a great kid.
Oh
too.
Yeah, and she's good. And you know what? And she's hot too.
Yeah, she's beautiful, beautiful girl.
I forget her name, but she's.
And his son Mike. His son Mike is like a spitting image of him. But one day I was doing a show, and they both came bopping into the studio like, "Hi, Phil," and it's amazing. The people that listened to the show at the time. I had June Lockhart would come in and watch me do the show. We had John Carpenter, the director. His wife gave as a birthday present to him, coming over to see my show. Cats that you would never in a million years. And then I got a request for an autograph from Clint Eastwood's wife. And,
really?
It's always to the wives, Yeah,
it's always to the wives. It's always to the
wives. They don't want
wives.
to ask themselves, yeah.
Clint's going to go, Clint's going to go, listen, bitch, I like this guy, but I don't want him to know that I want an autograph, so you're going to have to ask for the fucking autograph.
Yeah. George Lopez said one time I was doing a show. Now I'm dropping all these fucking names. I don't mean to do that,
but hold on. That's what it's all. I mean, who gives? I mean, fuck. I want to ask you about a whole bunch of people, so don't even think about it.
Well, I was an ill-advised. Not ill-advised. I mean, Dennis is a nice guy, but I was on the Dennis Miller show. Not on the show, but he would invite me on occasionally. And when he had that thing on MSNBC, a little talk show on MSNBC, and Lopez was on one day. He says, "Phil, where's Phil Hendrie? There he is. Clint Eastwood wants to have lunch with you." Oh, no, that wasn't it. He said to me, he says, "I talked to Clint Eastwood. I said, Clint, we should have lunch with Phil Hendrie." Okay. And, but that never happened. Just stuff like that.
Did you ever meet Wolfman Jack?
No, man, he had passed on by the time I got.
What was your first year in LA? Like 89, 90 was your first year in LA. Well, you lived in LA. I mean, you were born in LA.
Yeah, I was born and raised in Los Angeles, but I left and went to Florida in '72, and I was working in construction when I got into radio in '73, and I stayed down south in Florida. I went to New Orleans.
But how does a kid from LA, because everybody in Florida wants to go to LA because we're just a bunch of white trash down here, and so you grow up in LA. Your dad was from Canada, I think, was he not?
Right.
And you grow up in LA, and then at 18, 19, I think you spend a year in college or something like that, and then you of all fucking places, how do you think I'm going to go to Orlando and help build Disneyland? Like, how the fuck does that happen?
It was interesting because one of my best friends in high school, his dad was a construction contractor. He was a concrete construction contractor, and we all hung. We were very tight, and we heard he was splitting. He was leaving. He was going where? I'm going to Orlando. My dad's moving his business to Orlando, Florida, because in the early 70s, that's where it was at in terms of building. Florida was expanding, and Disney World had, put Orlando on the map, and so there was a lot of home building going on. And when you're a kid and you got nothing going on, and you want to get the hell out of where, it doesn't matter where you were born and raised, you want to get the hell out of there at some point just to go and see the rest of the world maybe. We piled into a car and went down there supposedly for just one summer to work in construction work, just to make a couple of bucks and come back. I wound up staying. The other guys left. I wound up staying. And about 8 months later, I got my first job in radio at WBJW AM in Winter Park. And
I think didn't that end up being the BJ 105?
Yes. Then they bought the FM. They had an FM that they bought and turned that into BJ 105. I was one of the first disc jockeys on that station. And it was really a kind of a chicken rock station because the first real kick-ass Q format was Q105 in Tampa.
Right, with Scott Shannon.
Yes.
And Mason Dixon, all those guys. And so did BJ 105 kind of like just emulate what they were doing over here?
Yeah, then finally BJ 105 figured it out and did exactly what Q 105 was doing.
Now, when you went to New Orleans, was it the old school, the way we used to have to do it, where when you were looking for another gig, you sent them like a little cassette air check
You got it.
and
All that bullshit,
to the
yeah.
program director, and you had to put your name on the deal. Then he'd listen, and you want to have like a 3-minute sizzle tape, hitting the fucking couple posts and stuff like that.
All of that stuff, man. Yeah, I sent a tape, and I finally got hired at this station WNOE in New Orleans. Yeah, and went to the French Quarter, and I mean, literally, we were in the French Quarter, and it was really fun. That was a staff of guys. I think these guys were all natives of New Orleans or had lived there for a long time. We had an afternoon drive guy, Scott Seagraves, who used to take a piss out the window of the studio because it opened, the window opened. Most studios, as you know, Bubba, are sealed.
Yeah.
You can't really open a window to go out to take, to see what's out there. But we had a window that literally opened up, and he would stand there and take a leak into the alley because it was easier than getting up and going to the head.
And then,
weird things like that.
So then you're still kind of dabbling in radio, and then I think you get your first talk break was like in L.A. at KFI for weekends.
Yeah. Well, I left New Orleans, went to L.A. as a disc jockey for another 10 years. I mean, I really just dicked around for about 17 years. And then, I did weekends at KFI, but it was real traditional. I had guests, and I was bored. I mean, I was boring me. So I knew I wasn't long for that job, and I got canned. And then I said to myself, if I'm going to do anything in radio, if you're going to do anything, Phil, you got to do it 100, 150%, 200%. Just be the weird ass that you are. And that's what I did. And I got hired at a little station up the coast here. I sent tapes everywhere, man. And where I got hired was 40 miles away in Ventura, California. Then I went to Atlanta.
But wasn't the I do my Phil Hendrie. I know my Phil Hendrie research pretty well. But I think Phil, I think one of the breaks that you got was at that Ventura station. You developed an Iraqi. Was it the guy during the Gulf War, and you developed this Iraqi guy who loved Saddam Hussein, and he'd fucking call in and he'd get people just absolutely batshit crazy.
Oh yeah, they really. And I didn't know it at the time, man. I had this idea. I think I'll just go on the air as this character, and I did. It says, Phil Hendrie is not, when I'm going to be guest hosting today to speak to about Saddam Hussein, who is my president, all this good shit. Well, next thing you know, my engineer, my producer, a guy named Kid Greg that I had, he says to me, there's people calling up wanting to talk to the Iraqis. So I said, well, put them through. And that's where it kind of started. And I wondered how long was I going to be able to do that. And in Ventura, they had a market of 600,000 people, not very long, but I was doing a lot of solo shit, and then went to Atlanta, and it really got good there. And Atlanta, they always put me, nobody ever really believed what I was going to do was going to be any good. So in Atlanta, I didn't even have a phone screener, man. I didn't have an engineer. I had to engineer and phone screen my own show for like the first, couple of months.
And there's been a couple instances where I haven't had phone screeners, and I almost think it adds a dynamic that unknown dynamic. Now, you get a lot of shit that you have to get through, but boy, I think when you can get that spontaneous dynamic that hasn't been screened sometimes, some of my best phone calls have been that way.
Yeah. It's just, what I was doing was so specific that, you could check, if you got being yourself, being Bubba the Love Sponge, or just being Phil Hendrie, you can deal with it. But if you've got a very specific character and a specific thing you need to do, you have to wait. Callers can take over a show to the negative really fast unless you, because in my opinion, a caller is like a character on the show. It's just a performer. It's not really the audience. It's part of the performance.
And as long as you've been doing radio, Phil, probably 15 years longer than me or even longer, but I think I have developed a sense, and I think all good radio talk guys do, where you can quickly decipher fairly accurately who is on the other side of the phone based on what you hear in the background, based if they're smoking, based if they're driving, based if there's kids in the background, based on, do you have that same sense, so to speak? And it's not anything special. It's just just the tens of thousands of phone calls that we've heard, you can start picking it out a little bit.
Yeah, well, the best caller is somebody who is not really familiar with making phone calls to radio stations, although there are people who are what they call, what is called chronic callers who don't know what's going on. But I would listen to a person if they're eating. That sounds a little too relaxed. That sounds like somebody who's just like, has done it too much. If they're asking too many questions and they're not really stating an opinion, that's a worthless phone call. Yeah, things like that. But however, if they're hesitating but they're really, really emotional, that's great. And you can also tell when people are putting on the emotion. I just want to talk. Let me talk to this guy. Yeah, well, wait a minute, man. I got a few things I want to ask you before we put you on.
When you get a live one on the hook, Phil, it's like a radio boner for us radio guys. When you get a real good live one that you could just really fuck with, and we'll go over. What's been? I got a couple, but what's been the biggest heat that you ever got from from a caller or?
Oh well, we had the famous call. I think it was when Tiger Woods was in his first wave of fame. We were doing a bit about how it was basically racial material. And I forget what we were saying, but we got a guy call us, and this dude was working as the starter. If people who golf know what a starter is, he's the guy that gives you the tee time, and he's the guy that sends you out to your first tee. This guy was the starter at a local, pretty big course. I think it might have been even Rancho Park or something. And he was just, I can't believe what I'm hearing. And he was real. And in fact, I thought the guy was going to stroke out. I was actually scared that we were going to have a caller die. And my character is just amping him up, going, "You still got that temporary green out there on 17? We don't have temporary greens. We have the most beautiful." And then he stopped. He's like this. I mean, hard time breathing. And we kept it up. We kept going like. And then a guy had some great lines like, "You don't have friends. You just got people that laugh behind your back." One of the greatest lines I ever heard. But this cat, I thought he was going to die. And we have that call on one of our CDs too, I think, somewhere.
One of the worst troubles besides the killing of the hog and some other stupid stuff that I've done. But one of the worst troubles I ever got into was just something so simple. I got on the Power Pig Top 40 deal, and I said, for all you kids, it was during Christmas. I said, for all you kids, you have to, listen to the radio tonight at 8:20. It's going to be the most influential thing that you ever had. It's the most important thing as a kid ever. And I got on the air and told, I got like 6 kids all on the line, like, "Johnny, you there? Yeah, Lisa, yeah, hi. Or you say hi to everybody, hi." I go, "There is no Santa Claus. It's just your mom and dad." And, oh my God, I got in so much trouble. The station actually got sued by a couple parents saying that I ruined their Christmas and all this kind of bullshit.
Oh, dude, you know what, man? They want you to do that shit until it backfires, and then they don't know you.
Yeah, until they lose like a fucking used car lot for $2,500 a month, and then you're out the door.
Then you're out the door, yeah. And I've seen that happen so many times. I don't know how many advertisers we might have lost. I knew that my show was a hard sell, and I've always said that radio is not a good place for talent. I don't give a shit what anybody says. It's not. It's a place that does not really respect talent. It's a place that wants to just make money, and they'll just churn them and burn whoever comes to the door. And I know that because I've worked in television and I've worked in other places where they actually care what you have to say, and they give a shit about how you feel, and they want to make the work environment as good as possible, and they want to, pay you what you're worth. And radio, I actually had GMs as recently as 5 or 6 years ago say things like, "I don't talk to agents." Well, what kind of an asshole says something like that? Of course you talk to agents, man. Of course you got to talk business with a guy who doesn't know anything about business.
But but meanwhile, Phil, the people, and I'm not saying anything bad about television, people, but if you watch like a television anchor on CNN or wherever, and there's a natural disaster, and they have to do any on-the-fly shit at all, like stuff that we have to do every fucking second of our careers.
Oh, yeah.
That's all we do is on-the-fly shit. Like, that's literally all we do. And when they have to go on the fly because there's a natural, they're horrible. They're absolutely horrible. Television people are.
Yeah, I mean, they're terrible. You talk about news guys.
Oh my God, we just got a special report that there's a helicopter down on the, whatever, and then they have to throw it out live and keep the conversation going and what have you. They can't, most scripted television news people can't do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know that world all that well. I know they have a lot more technically they got to deal with. So if a guy has to carry a segment because they're waiting for a camera to get someplace, they're waiting for a mobile truck to get somewhere, it's probably hard. But, you do have to really be on it, man. You can't, look, dude, you're in the news business, man. You're not there because you want to get a magazine cover or you want to, well, I don't know what half those cats want to do, man. Do they want to become, movie stars or something. I don't know.
What's harder, Phil? Radio, the way we do it, or TV?
Well, I don't do news and TV. I mean,
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about news TV, but
what's
like just
harder?
acting and
Acting's
all
tough.
the things that you've done.
Acting is hard. It's way harder than what I did at radio, but that's only because I don't have the chops that I had in radio for acting. I mean, I'm just learning the craft as I go, and it is very difficult because I've seen people, really tremendously talented people, in acting in front of the camera because they've done it for years. You got to bring a reality to what you're doing. You can't just stand there and mug and put it on. So, and I only say that about Phil Hendrie. I'm not saying that our business, radio business, isn't hard business. It is. Take those cats off of a soundstage and have them do what we do, and it would be just as difficult for them.
Who's the greatest actor, Phil, you've ever seen? Like, is it a Clint Eastwood? Is it
You mean in my whole life?
Yeah,
I mean,
in your whole, like, because from a guy that comes from the entertainment side, radio, which is a whole different animal, and also acting on the screen, you've done them both. Which guy is the most talented? Maybe it's not even a person people know as much.
Well, I mean, God damn, it's a big question. When I was a kid, it was Rod Steiger. As an adult, Daniel Day-Lewis. It's hard to say, though, man. I mean, you take guys that can. I love guys that do characters, and there's not a whole lot of people because you get lost in the makeup. But
like a Robin Williams, maybe.
Robin was great. There's no question about it. But I wouldn't say he's the greatest I ever saw. I'd say that a guy like Daniel Day-Lewis. Or some of these British actors that are working today in American television, you wouldn't even know they're British. They get down the American accent so well. Half the cast on Walking Dead is from England.
I like the guy that plays Axelrod. I don't know what his name is on Billions.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Yeah, see, there you go. One of my favorite actors of all time, I have to say, is Mo Collins on Fear the Walking Dead. But I also work with her on F is for Family, so I'm biased. And I think comic actors are really good doing drama too, because I think that somebody said, I forget who, that it's easy to do drama. It's very hard to do comedy. And so you take a comedian and ask them to do drama, it's going to be a lot more. They're better for some reason than a dramatic actor doing comedy. But yeah, I would, off the top of my head, man, Daniel Day-Lewis knocks me out for all the shit he's done.
In all the L.A. royalty circles, that you were considered one of the, the big guys in L.A. over the, and did you ever meet Rick Dees?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I met Rick Dees.
What was Rick like?
He's a nice man. He's a nice guy. I mean, obviously Rick is a guy who knows far better than I ever knew how to put his best foot forward and ingratiate himself. And I think that's the key to life. I don't think there's anything wrong with a guy smiling and shaking your hand and saying, "Hey, how you doing?" And Rick does that. And did it very, very well. Super successful.
Kind of the Ryan Seacrest before Ryan Seacrest did it.
I think so, except Ryan's got all this TV fame that maybe Rick wishes he had. I shouldn't speak for him. I don't know. But I guess Rick is retired now, back home in maybe I don't know if he still lives in California or not. But yeah, Ryan Seacrest, that's a story right there.
How's your studios, Phil? Did you build big studios?
Not like you, dude. I mean, I always tell people about your place. They go, "God damn, this dude's got a real compound, man. This thing is great."
It's like Bubba Koresh or some bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome what you got, man. Aren't you just right near the airport, too?
Yeah, we're in the fucking flight pattern, actually. You know.
Yeah, that killed me, man, the day I was over there. And then you showed me the backyard area where you have, like, you put your listeners through all kinds of stunts and shit.
Yeah, and now we got, as of Monday, we got goats. They're going to be back there. And, the fucking city's going to try to come take my goats away, but I got a doctor to write me a emotional support animal paper. And so I got two, they're going to be show goats. And, yes, two show goats.
Oh.
How about,
they got goats out. They got goats out here. They're using them to clean up the hillsides and shit before they build houses.
Yeah, I heard that you can go in there and they bring like 100 goats to the hillside. They put like a temporary fucking fence up. They eat the shit out of it, and then they build the house.
Yeah, exactly. I just saw a few the other day going down the road. I mean, my studio was built by. I think it was built by the first go around was built by one of the techs that I was working with for a syndication company I was with. And then I've got my tech engineer, a guy named Adam Chavez, who's fantastic. Adam's just a whiz kid. And we brought in a TriCaster for our video casts, and it's built so one guy can just run it. I don't need to have a whole lot of people there. And I just got rid of Frontier Communications though, because I do a character phone that I use, and it would cost me like $400 or $500 a month. And what am I spending that money for one stinking phone for, man?
Man, I have Frontier too at my house, and they're the worst at customer service. I mean, They are.
Yeah.
My internet went down, and they're like, "Well, we'll get there in 6 days." I'm like, 6? Fuck, what? 6 days?
Yeah. Same thing with me. It was like, well, I got to go. I got a ticket. So this ticket closed. This other guy's going to have it. They got a ticket. That's what they call a job. This ticket's open. Okay, and where do you have to be? Well, we got to go outside. I think it's outside the building on a pole. Okay, when are you going to be here? Well, we were there yesterday. You were here yesterday. Well, not really. We canceled. What the hell does that mean, man? But we'll be out there tomorrow. That's when I finally just said, screw it, I can't.
Phil Hendrie's Mount Rushmore of radio.
Oh, the best guys I ever heard on the radio?
Four. You know that Mount Rushmore has 4. I know you're a very educated man.
Well, you got to put Howard there.
You got to put Howard there.
Yeah, he changed the game in a lot of ways.
Yep.
And people are going to hate this or love this, but for what he did in terms of opening talk radio up so that goofballs like me could even begin to, work, I got to say Rush Limbaugh.
Now, you know what? I would say that's so far. You're right on my 4.
Steve Dahl's got to go there because Steve was like the OG of it all, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And the 4th guy, Wolfman Jack.
Yeah.
Wolfman Jack, that cat brought theatrics to radio like it had never been brought.
I would put, just because I'm kind of the generation after you, I'd put Rome in there just because he kind of opened up the sports deal.
That's a good point. Yeah. I'd have to make a space for Rome.
We may have to put 5 on there, and then maybe you and I can be dingleberries of them.
Awesome. Yeah, good idea.
Phil Hendrie.
Yeah, you're right.
Phil, what was your biggest contract ever? Like, would it be like when you had like 250 stations with Premiere?
Yeah, Premiere was the big money. Yeah, that was big money for a long time, and that has allowed me to roll on, man. I mean, I made money at Premiere. I had a retirement that I set up, and it's helped me build my individual business. And it also obviously gave me all kinds of connections into other worlds that I would never have known, I don't think. So that was the biggie. That was the big apple.
That was the big gravy.
How long I was going to be able to keep it up, though?
Well, Phil, I mean, you probably have done so well that you could probably, go another 5 years and be done if you wanted to. But I think, just like Howard, I think that you and Howard, I think you guys are always going to dabble in it. I think that you always want to have the ability to go back there in the studio, turn the thing on, and fuck around a little bit.
Yeah, well, I forget who said it. They said there's 2 kinds of people in radio: guys that want to be on the radio and guys that have to be. And you and Howard and others, we have to be. It's something I got to do. It's like doing anything that you love.
It's kind of it really, honest to God, is kind of our therapy. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, it's hard telling the sick shit we would be into if we didn't have our shows.
I don't know what. Like, if we lived in the 19th century, what would we be doing, man? Like that dude in Wizard of Oz going town to town with a freaking wagon full of snake oil and shit? Maybe.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but it is something that I need to do. And the way I work really physical. I'm sweating when I get off the air. And
so am I. People don't realize, Phil, I'm not sweating, but I'm mentally drained. Like after my show, like for the next hour or so, I'm done. Like I don't want to have any meetings. I don't want to talk on the phone. I'm done. My brain's fried.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I had such a hard time in my one and only marriage. When I would get home, my wife would want to talk. And I'd say, I can't talk, man. I just can't. And then we kind of pissed her off until she started doing radio. And then she said to me one day, boy, now I know what you mean,
And only a radio guy would even understand that, because I'm the same way. Like probably some of the relationships that I've been involved in are not been as well, because I just literally, I'm a big texter because I don't want to talk.
Mm-hmm. Right. Exactly. Yeah. You're all done, man. I got nothing else to talk about.
Yeah, I gave my best to the people that don't know me, and now the person that loves me and wants to have sex with me, I don't have shit. I don't have shit for you.
I don't have anything for you.
So we were talking about there's not any good radio, programmers. There's the Randy Michaels, the Kevin Weatherlys, the B.J. Harrises. Did you ever work for Mark Driscoll?
No, I didn't.
Uh,
I know these names though. I know all these guys.
But who are your big, your influential programmers? Mine would be probably Randy Michaels, Brad Harden, B.J. Harris, Buddy Scott. Who's your guy?
The guys that helped me would be David Hall in L.A. at KFI, Rich Galano in Ventura was super influential. Rich could sit down and talk, and David too could talk about not whether something was funny. A good programmer never says that to you. He just tries to help you do what you're doing better. So he would talk about how to construct a bit, in terms of coming out of the box really strong, things like that. They wouldn't sit down and rap formatics with you unless, you were screwing them up a little bit.
Really, you don't realize a good program director and a good manager until there's some shit going down and they got your back.
Yeah.
That's when you really realize. That's when a Mark Chase or a Brad Harden or a B.J. Harris or a Randy Michaels says, listen, sales department, we'll fucking get around this, okay? And we'll do whatever we can, but I'm standing behind my guy. That's a good PD.
Yeah, well, and you have to. That's what I say. You and I are sitting here talking about good program directors. They're few and far between because it's a business that is going to sell you out more than it's going to back you up.
Yep.
Because why? Because they don't have the money to hire the lawyers to fight the case that they have the legal that they would win. It's in other words, I don't even want to go to court to defend you and we'll win that because it's going to cost too much. I just as soon fire you, even though you weren't really in the wrong. That's the kind of bullshit.
Or settle, or we'll later. Like I've had when I worked for Clear Channel, I had them write like a couple, they would write a check to some dumb bitch for $36,000 because I called her stupid, just because it was going to cost $105,000 to go to trial.
Yeah, there you go. And one guy I should mention also, he was the program director. He was our general manager in Miami, and that's Bob Green.
Bob Green.
Bob Green was. I never had a GM sit down and prep the show with me. What general manager would sit down and do show prep with you?
But would he do it? Would he do it in a cool way, or would he do it in an overbearing way?
Totally cool. Oh, totally cool. He would more or less like sitting and interested in how I was doing it. Say, what do you think? And I think this. Oh, why don't you try that? That kind of thing. Not telling me how to do it.
Very rarely do you get a GM that's like I had a Dave Reinhardt. He's since passed, but that really and Dave. Most of the good GMs that came from most of them come from sales. But I did over the years get a couple GMs that came from programming, and that's when there's straight money.
Well, I'll tell you, man. Randy Michaels came from programming.
Yep.
Randy Michaels was a disc jockey,
Yep.
And there were a couple of them. Jerry Peterson in Orlando was another one. These are the guys that would fight for the talent. And in the great mediums, whether it's a film or media, whether it's films or it's radio or it's anything, man, you fight for talent. You don't.
I had the best Randy Michaels story ever. We were in I did some stupid shit on the Power Pig, got some client pissed off, and there was this general sales manager named Jim, and they used to call him General Jim because he's a real dick, and he used to just, he didn't like the talent because we're all a bunch of, beer drinking, pot smoking dumbasses, and so anyway, he came in to the general manager's office, Dave Reinhardt, the general manager, and comes in, and Randy Michaels is in there from corporate Cincinnati, and Big Jim was this general sales manager was named Jim, and Randy Michaels is in there, the president of JCOR at the time, and he says, "Hey Jim, I'm going to accept your resignation for the general sales manager today, and if you'd like to apply to be the program director, I got a guy named Mark Chase who's really talented. I don't know if you're going to be better than him, but if you'd like to apply for that, you can. Otherwise, you can shut your fucking mouth and go back and sell some shit."
I love that.
And Jim goes, "Okay, when you got a guy doing, setting the salespeople like that straight because they got one cancellation and they stick up for the talent, it's just so rare because that does not happen anymore at all."
No, and I'll tell you something. My very first job in radio, I had a salesman call me up and give me shit for something I was saying on the air. A salesman
on the hotline.
on a fucking hotline, man.
And a fucking sales pig is calling you up, telling you what for.
Yeah. Are you ready for that? I mean, I'm sitting in a universe that I didn't know anything about. I was a kid. I was like just turned 20, and I'm okay. Yes, sir. What the fuck? What do I know? But Jerry Peterson was the general manager, he was general manager, and he had been a program director. And he simply sat down with me and says, next time a sales guy calls you up and tells you anything, you tell him, fuck off, Ace. He sticks his finger up in the air, give him this, tell him, fuck off, Ace.
Fuck off, Ace.
Yeah, that was the phrase that I kept with me for the rest of my career. Not to disrespect sales guys, man. They
no.
work hard.
We really need to coexist with them. So I don't want anybody to think that. But, man, you get some that are overbearing sometimes, and they have to have the right managers to put them in place.
They do, man, because I the last thing I would ever do, man, is go back in the sales office and tell those cats how to do what they're doing. And that's just where that is. And yeah, I like to be friendly with those guys. But nobody's going to make me the reason why they're not making money. I'm sorry, dude. The reason why you're not making money is because you can't fucking sell. And you're just going to have to either face that or not.
Yeah, because you can't have a 10 share and no controversy. It's either going to have one or the other. Either you're going to have a 10 share in Miami at night, or you're going to have a fucking 3. You can sell the shit out of the 3 share, and the 10 share is going to be tough. But what one you want?
Yeah, and it's interesting, man. You got to be in the right environment. So the kind of thing that I do, I used to say to whoever would listen to me, you really need a third format. You got music and you have talk radio. You need personality talk radio. You got news talk, which is, we all know what that is. But personality talk is what you do, what I do, what the Loop did, what WIOD did. We needed about 100 more stations like that to give guys that were interested in performing as opposed to just sitting behind a microphone and spieling bullshit.
And the day and age of developing the next Phil Hendrie or the next Howard or the next whomever is over, because it used to be you and I started in Terre Haute and I went to Grand Rapids, then San Antonio, then Chicago, just like you went to you started out in Orlando, then you crafted and you went to New Orleans, and then from there back to Miami, and then and then Atlanta and KFI. Like there's no more minor league system to propel yourself into a top 5 market. Now it's just they just hub and spoke and syndicate it in. So there is no overnight guy in Grand Rapids that's honing his trade, and a guy like Greg Cassidy or a good PD like Guy Sapolian or John Sykes can have air check sessions with you and turn you into a pretty good radio personality, because they just barter some fucking Ryan Seacrest sounding guy for free. Boom.
Yeah, because there you go, man. And I just saw a thing in the paper the other day, and I don't think I've ever read anything like this before in my life, but it was a group of CEOs, really important guys, who said the following: we can't make it about the shareholders anymore. Meaning, it's not going to be just about getting as much money for our shareholders as possible. We have to begin to be responsible for other things. And that's like the guys basically in radio saying, we can't just go out and throw people overboard for money. We have to support our talent. That would be the similar.
And thank God they haven't supported talent like they should, because otherwise your platforms, people will find the content. They will, and they'll pay for it as well. And if they hadn't just ran everybody off, people wouldn't be able to do the one-off stuff like you are and make good bread on it.
It's funny, Bubba, why radio missed the boat on the internet, I'll never really quite understand, other than the fact that it proves how short-sighted and really not too bright the people that were running our business were back around 99 and 2000, when it was evident that there was the dot-com bubble had burst. That's true. But as you know, it didn't kill the internet, didn't kill the internet business. And it's something that guys as heavy as the Dickey brothers, is that their name at ABC? Those guys used to rule the roost over at ABC. They're gone now because they said things like, we're going to burn the midnight oil on this internet thing and see where we've heard about it, but where do you make the money? See? So they couldn't figure it out, man.
And podcasting is basically the developmental ground that small market radio used to be. You don't think, like for instance, Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan would be just as popular in a Los Angeles-based, syndicated radio station if somebody would have given him a chance and worked with them. Obviously some language barriers and FCC rules and things like that. But content and good content is, no matter how you distribute it, is good content. And I think radio has stuck their head in the sand, and they've kind of everybody's like, oh, radio's done it to itself. Radio has committed suicide, basically.
Yeah, and man, it's the death of an industry now. Who was I talking? We're seeing it in a couple of other areas, but to watch an entire industry just die, I think it'll be back. I don't know what form it'll be in. We got so much of this bullshit. They say everybody wants on demand. Everyone wants on demand. I don't know. The day may come when people want to just jump in the car again and flip on the radio and be surprised.
I'll tell you one thing. If I could jump in the radio and I had a fucking show like yours or mine or Howard's right there, boom, I'd listen to I'd listen the fuck out of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's impossible to predict the future, but I don't think it's over for radio. I don't think it's all digital now, And
no, radio needs some more stars. They need some big slinging dicks. I think you and I need to get back on it, Phil.
I'm ready to do it. But remember how they used to say water cooler, because everybody was talking about what was on the radio. I can't remember the last time anybody was talking about what was on the radio. I can't. Seriously, I know people talk about Game of fucking Thrones and all this other bullshit, God damn, man. Enough already, It's like we're way off in fantasy land now. I guess the world is so scary that we're diving into Spider-Man more than ever before, the Guardians of the Galaxy and all this shit. But I don't hear anybody talking about what's on the radio.
No, nothing. Nobody, because everybody, and because most radio guys are afraid.
Yeah, and all these dudes that are supposedly making all this noise as political talk guys, no one's talking about them either.
You know what that is? Angry white guy radio is what that is.
Yeah, as opposed to fun-loving, slap-happy white guy radio.
That's you and I.
Which I did. Yeah.
Give me Ted Bell any day over some, bullshit right or left stuff. By the way, I not to be too much of a fan groupie, but Ted Bell is my favorite character by far. I fucking love Ted.
Yeah, I love Ted, man. In fact, I've been fucking around on my iPhone with these animojis. You can put a head on top of yourself.
I've seen you. I saw you do it, and I love it, and it really kind of looks like a younger, hipper version of you anyway.
Exactly. So, that I want to do something like that, man. I want to do a little get into animation that way.
Now, when you picture Ted Bell, that '70s throwback fucking steakhouse of Beverly, like that with the red velour, and a martini. That's how I picture Ted. Is that what you envision for Ted?
That's exactly right. Yeah, that's Ted. That's
with the wide '70s collar, kind of, and the leisure fucking suit,
Yeah. Nothing but a smile on his face.
He visits everybody's table by the end of the night, and he knows his big whale customers, and he's got a bottle of champagne for those guys ready to go.
You got it. Yeah, and he personally serves some of them. Yeah, that's Ted.
How often does Ted call in?
Every now and again. Not that all these characters probably make appearances, a couple times a month, probably. But Ted is a guy that. I forget what storyline I got going with him right now. It's really weird. It's really fucking weird.
Well, hold on. Ted's a fucking maverick. Ted can develop any storyline at any time. Ted's a chameleon. Yeah, he could fucking roll with it, buddy.
It's true. Yeah, I got him doing some weird thing like, I don't know. I think he's. I got to. It's funny about me, man. I've said this for years. I don't remember what I do on the air the minute I get off.
Phil? I swear to God, sometimes later in the day, I couldn't tell you what any of my breaks were. None.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
And we're not radio guys where we're playing 8 records an hour. We're talking free. And we probably my 4-hour show probably has about 2 hours and 58 minutes of talk if you take the commercials out. So I I flap my fucking fat gums for 3 hours and usually can't tell you one thing I said.
Yeah. I do not remember. People say, "What did you do on the show today?" I don't know. I don't know. I'll have to listen.
You can't even tell me. You can't even tell me the storyline you got going on with Ted Bell right now.
With Ted Bell, yeah. All I know is it's really strange and it's funny. It makes me laugh. So that's the other thing that I learned is to story arc a lot of this stuff over several shows.
Oh yeah, you got to.
Yeah.
Did you ever hear Kevin? Did you ever hear Kevin Matthews's Jim Shorts thing?
Yes, I did.
That's one of my. That is one, and I think he does it much like the way you do your stuff. But God, that's one of my favorite characters. Kevin's so talented.
Isn't Jim Shorts like from Wisconsin? Is he from Milwaukee?
No, he's from Fort Wayne.
Fort Wayne, that's right. I remember one day I'm listening. That was in Milwaukee.
Yeah. And Jim Shorts had this imaginary girlfriend called Miko, who was Asian. And one day I'm listening to AM 1000 in Chicago when I was there, and Jim's like, I'm real tore up, Kev. I'm real tore up. Miko didn't bleach my underwears, and I got poop stains on it. And Miko is currently tied up getting waterboarded right now. And I think the general manager is going to be mad about it, some kind of Asian deal. But the way we used to do that in Fort Wayne is you'd keep a bitch down, is what you do.
Oh man. You know what? There's a guy that could get away with doing all of that stuff, and he wouldn't have to pull phone calls from people who believe they were real, right?
And and he does Jim Short so brilliantly that and he pulls it off so well. But God, Phil, I could talk to you like a little radio bitch for hours. I got to tell you.
I think it's like just a couple of guys talking about the wars, man. And I never want to sound like an old timer saying, "Well, anytime they want to bring me back, Christ, that'd be great." Or, how good it was back in the day. Because I know there's a lot of really hard-working, talented guys right now that are looking to do the shit that you're doing, that I did, that Howard's doing. And they're wondering where the hell they're going to go. A lot of them are going into stand-up.
Yeah.
It's goddamn. There are more stand-up comedians now than ever before.
Oh, I think, the thing about it is, but, with the podcasting now, everybody can do what we do, and you just send it to wherever. And, you kind of have a radio show. Everybody can have a radio show, so to speak, which puts that much more shit out there, which now people have to try to wade through to find the good stuff.
Well, I like to say that there was a time back, everybody could buy a paint and a paintbrush and a canvas, but not everybody was Picasso. So because there's more tools for the art form still doesn't mean that there's the geniuses. It's not going to necessarily mean that there's all these geniuses out there. I think there's more people who have access to it, which I think is good. But the good stuff is always going to rise to the top, man. So,
Phil, I love talking to you, buddy.
One more thing. It's interesting to note that one of the top podcasts is NPR. I think that's the only radio podcast that really, really does phenomenally well. So, anyway.
Phil, let's talk more often, my friend.
Do it, man. I would love to.
You don't come back to Tampa. You used to cat around here a little bit, didn't you?
A little bit, yeah. A really wonderful lady named Liz Wild lives down Bradenton, I think, is where it is. I got to come down there and see her because she hasn't been well, and I miss talking to her.
Is she? I saw that she just got. Did she get back into radio?
Yeah, I think she got her show going somewhere.
I think Liz did.
Putting it up on the bird from where she lives, Anna Maria Island, is it? And she's got a great husband, but I got to go down. I got to see you.
You can always do your show from my place. You know that, buddy. I would fucking be like so honored for you to spend some time behind my. Well, that almost sounds like I'm propositioning. Hey, Phil, would you spend some time behind my microphone, big boy?
Yeah, okay. I would love to do it, man, because I just want to sit in that big compound there.
Yeah.
And the other thing about you. You are so tidy, man, with the tech. You got the wires all fucking labeled. You got everything really cool. You even pointed that out to me. You go into my studio, and that spaghetti junction I got behind my board is, like, nauseating. So,
now, Phil, I got goats. So what the fuck?
Now you got goats. There you go, man.
Hey, Phil, please keep in touch. And I just got to let you know how much I respect you and how talented you really are and just how honorable it is to speak to you, bud.
Well, thank you, brother. I appreciate it, Bubba. I really, really do. And it's
and don't stop a fucking nothing that you're doing. Don't stop nothing, buddy. Keep doing what you're doing.
Man. No. Till the day I drop, and then beyond.
All right, man.
Thanks, man.
Hey, Phil. Good talking to you, kiddo.
All right, brother.
Bye, buddy.
Take care. Bye-bye.
God, I love that guy. What a talented guy. If you're a true radio historian, you will appreciate that guy. And if you're not, then I don't really. That loss is on you, cousin. That's it. Almost an hour today. Going long, Sponge. My L6 is blowed out, and I got to go look at these goats. I'll see you tomorrow.